I had to be successful or there was no other option. And so
Right. Right.
for my story, one of the major pieces of who I am today is the loss of my father. It was just the wrong people in those seats. Nothing against them, but it's just they weren't the right players for where we were headed. And so when I brought Hunter in, he redid everything. He looks at our marketing spend. He looks at how we're doing marketing. He's like, "Hey, here's my idea. It'll be $8,000 a month." I was like, "Cool, here you go. Here's 8 grand." And so, "Hey, I think we should do this. It's going to be 6 months of 6 months minimum spend for this marketing channel is going to be $10,000 every single month." I was like, "Cool, there's 60 grand." And so he's giving me these ideas, and then I see it start to play out, and I look at what he was able to do, and I just kept pushing into it, leaning into it, letting him take charge of how we ran.
That you care about people, you have empathy for people, but you also care about yourself, your organization, your partner, your business, your family. You know, there's that balance of ego and empathy is one of the best things I ever heard when I was learning to sell and teaching other people to sell,
Yeah, it's
and
brilliant.
keeping that as I like formulas. I mean, to me, it's not a formula I can write on a blackboard, but you understand that that's a balance of things. So those kinds of things are really exciting to me, and I've heard this through the whole podcast.
His name is Russ. He bought that mic, and now he's got a podcast show.
Tie it all together. So Hayden, leading you first, talking about spending hours on watch with somebody and making that connection and learning how to talk to people and learning skills like cutting hair, or how do you tie that into what you do now?
I think not necessarily military, but for me, and I think a little bit of Hunter as well for his story is, um, our backs were against the wall. We kind of, you know, we had to make some big decision in our life. Like it was either like we kind of burned the ships, like
Yeah.
I had to be successful or there was no other option. And so
Right. Right.
for my story, one of the major pieces of who I am today is the loss of my father. And I saw him essentially work a W-2 style job until he passed away young. And so he passed away young, and I feel like I feel like he missed out on what he deserved. He deserved time. He never got to meet grandkids, and like all of
Sure.
these things.
How old was your father, Hayden?
Low 50s, I think maybe like 52,
Okay.
and
Wow. Okay.
yeah, and so for
Younger
me,
than
it was
I.
sudden. It was sudden. It was
Yeah.
unexpected, and
Yeah.
so
Okay.
it was a great relationship, and just have that yanked out for me was really tough. And I looked at the way his life kind of played out with working a W-2, and I was like, I cannot. I feel like I want to have as much quality time and be able to provide everything I want for my family, and have nobody be able to dictate how my life is going to go. So
Yep.
I didn't want to rely on somebody retirement account for some job I'm working for 40 years and then I'm working away for somebody else. I wanted to create my own thing. And so it forced me to there's no other way. I have to pave my own path. I can be bankrupt 3 times by the time I'm 50 and I still be ahead, And so it's like, I don't care. Like when he says I'm crazy,
That's the psycho part.
like I'll
Sure.
just,
That's completely unreasonable,
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I just will
and
figure it
and
out.
that
I'm not scared. Like
that gets
there's
to be a
things where
running theme in this podcast is we're not reasonable people. That's completely unreasonable,
it,
and I totally agree. So, continue. I interrupted you.
Yeah. And so I know I just like Hunter had his realization with hotels and his story that he told where he kind of just had to make a decision. And I think for both of us, it was just, there's no other way. There's no other option for us. The risk I forced Hunter to take some risk in his career now, but it's just, we have to do it. And we took what we learned I was in charge of a bunch of sailors and a nuclear reactor, and he was in charge of hotels. And we took those learnings and just doubled down, and poured into it. And it's turned out phenomenal. I think one of the best parts about our story is I hired you the week that wholesaling became illegal. I think that's one of the craziest parts of how this all worked out is that
Yeah.
the biggest change in our industry in the last 30 years happened the week that he got hired. And he's sitting there and I'm like, we were
Yeah.
figuring it out together. And that makes our story that much
I'm at the
better.
gym before the first day. I'm listening to Wholesale Hotline, and I was on the elliptical, and I'm listening to the episode that dropped on Sunday, and that was Monday morning, and like, yeah, states are starting to crack down. Like South Carolina just made it illegal. I'm like, oh shit! Like I just, yeah, because like
So
people are saying
your
like
new job just became illegal.
jobs was totally like it took so much. It was a huge, like, I was proud of myself once it was done, but I was scared shitless because, like, I just wasn't, secure salary, know what I make every 2 weeks, not knowing, like, to do that. I knew I wasn't happy. I knew, and I think both of us are the type of people, we're never happy with what we have. I can speak for myself. I always want more. And I battle like these two people in my head because, like, part of me is like, old Southern boy who's, I just want to be able to take care of the family and, do that. But at the same time, that's not true because I
Mhm.
always want more. And that's the truth. What that looks like, I don't know. It might kill me. I don't know. I'm
But
going through, but
I'm going to stop
I
you
would
there. I'm going to
do it.
stop you there for a minute because this is in our masterminds and in our coaching, listening to my coach or coaching other people and in the masterminds when we spend the day together. One of the most difficult things can be we're so ambitious. Can we be content? Can you be content and ambitious at the same time? And I've met a few people that I can see them turn it on and off. So the ambition has a place and the ambition is critical and none of us on this call can exist without the ambition. I mean, you take away the ambition, I'll just go jump off the bridge. I mean, we're not doing that. But can we find contentment with ambition and switch it on and off? And you guys have little kids.
I think that's
Yeah.
to that point, I think that's one of the biggest things for me is I listened to Brandon Turner on Bigger Pockets podcast, which I think is
Mhm.
kind of every real estate investor's like first go to. And one of the things he said, I remember it from years later, is he's like, when I had kids, it forced me to scale up. It forced me to actually look at what was going on, be really cognizant of my time, and my business grew after I had kids. And I always thought, I was like, there's no freaking way. I was like, I am an animal. You tell me that I'm going to work less and I'm going to grow the company. There's no way. And I think that's one of it kind of played out. I have a 10-month-old, Hunter's got a 3-month-old, and it forced me to look at how I'm spending my time and looking at who's around me and putting the right people in the place. I'm like Hunter's stepping up and he's growing the team and, I'm hired some assistants, I hired another executive assistant. We hired we're all of these people that I'm bringing into my life are because so that I can delegate it correctly. I have to trust people. I have to allow them to have that runway. And it's allowed me to now we're scaling up. We just hired 3 people this week. And so that was a very big takeaway on like it actually came to fruition on like
Yeah, it's
now
fuel.
I'm allowed to spend more time. I take Fridays off, to spend
Yeah,
time with the kid.
I love it. Well, and I think we need to schedule a second podcast at some point in the future and maybe get more into things like these boundaries
Yeah.
and how can you just, run at full speed and then turn it off.
It's hard. That's a hard thing.
And
Yeah.
and here's an example of when my girls were little. I have a bunch of kids, but my youngest two were little. I would get up at 5:30 in the morning, do my workout, do my meditation, and I would work until about 10. And then I was off at 10. And then I would come back on at about 4 and work a couple of hours. And I was with my kids. And then my ex-wife, who was in the business with me, she took that. She would get her workout in and she would do the middle of the day. And then we had dinner together every night. But then there were some emails and things to answer after the kids went to bed. So we sectioned our days off. And I'm not saying it's not a prescription. It's an example of one way you can do it. Taking Fridays off. I mean, that's another way to do it. So there's just all kinds of ways to balance that so we don't lose our minds. Well, tell us about what you're doing in the business now. What's your primary focus? We've talked about 90% about personal stuff. So let's actually talk about the business that you guys are running together.
Yeah. So right when Hunter joins, wholesale law becomes illegal. I had a team of people that are gaslighting me. If you're familiar with the term gaslighting, they
Mm-hmm.
just They were
Okay,
saying, "We need this, we
it's
need
not getting
this."
dark. What do you mean it's getting dark in here? It's not getting dark in here.
No,
What do
no,
you mean it's
exactly.
getting dark in here?
Yeah, and so they're like, "Oh, we need this," and, you walk in the office every day, and the atmosphere was wrong. It was just the wrong people in those seats. Nothing against them, but it's just they weren't the right players for where we were headed. And so when I brought Hunter in, he redid everything. He looks at our marketing spend. He looks at how we're doing marketing. He's like, "Hey, here's my idea. It'll be $8,000 a month." I was like, "Cool, here you go. Here's 8 grand," and so, "Hey, I think we should do this. It's going to be 6 months of 6 months minimum spend for this marketing channel. It's going to be $10,000 every single month." I was like, "Cool. There's 60 grand. And so he's giving me these ideas, and then I see it start to play out, and I look at what he was able to do, and I just kept pushing into it, leaning into it, letting him take charge of how we ran. Essentially, I mean, to boil this all down, I have an acquisitions company. We're always looking for deals. So we're in real estate looking for deals. Hunter's the spearhead of that. And so he's running that. He's got some people underneath him now, and he's built out these marketing channels and has refined them and continue to make sure they're operating at peak efficiency. And now we went from doing, I don't know, like maybe 30 deals total in the last 3 years to we did 100 deals in the last couple more in the last 12 months or something. Like we just took
So a
off,
couple months there.
took off. Yeah.
That's the future, baby.
Yeah. So, now we have how many people do you have, Hunter?
We got 4 under me. Is it 4? No. I got 3 guys in acquisitions. We got 2 dispo. We're working on hiring transaction out now too. It's really, I mean, the whole thing we're trying to do is we're building our brand. I mean, Hayden's done a good job. I mean, all of this, and you go to these events and they talk about building a brand, which is primarily why we're putting a lot into Google and building our things. Cause a lot of the marketing we're doing, it builds our competition, pay per lead. We're pouring money into a company doing Google and Facebook and all this. But if our competitors are using that, we're helping fund this company that's getting bigger and bigger, and then they're going to get better options. So the whole thing is we're in a big pivot too. I mean, we've pivoted we did a lot of virtual stuff coming into Charleston more. Hayden's like, dude, our biggest rips, we're here. And the ability of Hayden to raise money as he builds his brand, it's amazing because we are at a point to where if we need to buy something, it doesn't matter what it is, he'll raise money like that and we can close on it. And that opens you up because a lot of these, I love the hotels now. I mean, some of our biggest things of, something that maybe we would have done a good rip, a $50,000 assignment, but we buy it, get another, private money he's raised, put 20, 30K into it in 7 days, like the one we did, and make $100-some thousand dollars, that ability, a little bit more time, but shit, I'd rather make 6-figure profit than 50 grand. There is a fine line between fast money and, but that's the ability, is to be able to raise money. And we're buying more stuff now, which is, I'm in a transitional period because I like fast money, but it's it just makes sense where it's there's not as much equity in deals as there, even in the last year, stuff's been difficult. I don't know the reason why, but pivoting, we moved everything kind of to our home base, which is a lot more in-person appointments. We're an inbound acquisitions company most for. So we're usually the first person these people are talking to. So I have to be very cautious about giving prices out, because if people aren't educated on what a cash offer is, and I go spit something that's, $400,000 off of what they expect they're going to get, they're not going to talk to me anymore. So it's really, I'm finding myself having to schedule probably 5 to 6 in person, good leads that I'm not going to go waste my time and go somewhere if it doesn't, pencil out and we're, a good opportunity.
It kind of comes down to the way, what Hunter does really well is he can analyze a deal, underwrite a deal, and the architecture. There's no script. There's no magic pill. He builds a relationship, and he can very quickly decipher if there's any opportunity there or not. And so he's always maximizing his effort with people of, hey, I'm just on the phone with this person that's clearly not motivated, doesn't want to sell. And I can hear him. I listen in the office all day while the conversations, and he'll be like, hey, I think you really should list with a real estate agent, and he's constantly,
I don't waste time anymore.
Educating.
That's the thing. It's on to the next big time, filtering through what's worth your time and what's not. And when I first started out, I was nervous. I wanted to have conversations, and you'll stay on the phone for an hour with something that is nowhere near not going to be a deal. So now it's I'll look at something extra, because you're not going to change somebody's mind. Depends on motivation, those key pillars on a deal if it's going to be good or not. But I told my guys, I'm like, listen, this is something I figured this out. Hayden gave me a script. I threw that fucker in the trash can within like 10 minutes, man. And I was like, I feel like a robot right
Insubordination.
now. I was cold calling at times when I first started, and I'm like, trying to read this script. I'm like, no, I wanted that fuck. Yeah. I'm like, no. So I just started like some like chill, like I'm like, who am I? I'm Hunter
You're going to
Aldridge.
delete this
I'm,
part of the podcast because we can never train
kind of
acquisitions people
country
again.
guy there. And I'm like, so I switched up the script shit, and then I'm calling people and like they answered. I'm like, hey, how are you doing today? I'm doing good. Is this blah, 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 whatever name on it? Yeah. Hey, my name's Hunter Aldridge. I'm actually a local investor here in Somerville. I just wanted to call and see if you had any property or land you're looking to sell today. Nice country accent. And I started going from, F you, go die reactions to, even if they're saying no, I started getting a lot more like better conversations and stuff. And that's why I teach these guys when they come in. I'm like, the most benefit you're going to get is being around me and Sledge, being in the office, seeing us talk to people. Because that was the thing about like when Rob started, Rob is super hungry, comes out of the Army as well. He's not somebody that you have to micromanage. Like he's hungry and he's ready to go. Didn't spend a lot of time. Like, it was him being beside me. And I've learned this in hotels too, because I was very good at talking to people. People that worked with me, I would start hearing them reciprocate things that they heard me saying and interactions. And I knew that that's where I came through. I'm like, okay, you're not going to get a script. We got another new guy. My brother just joined us actually Monday. He's in North Carolina. He joined the team. So he's coming in. He was doing life insurance sales. But he's the same way. It's the ability to have a conversation. No one can teach you how to do this or have an interaction. It's not going to be good the first time. You have to learn, no one can prep you on scripts and stuff like all day. Even having a conversation in the office, practice makes better. But at the end of the day, you have to go through these circumstances to learn how to navigate that and figure it out. Because that's exactly what I did. And it sucks for them because they got a little bit of tough love because that's exactly what I did I didn't have, you weren't training me. I bugged the shit out of them how to underwrite at first for like the first month. And then what changed my point and more contracts, Hayden looks at me and goes, brother, he's like, just get it under contract. We've done enough examples, like just go and do it. And I needed that empowerment because I had this whole thought process of, this isn't my company. I'm not going to go get a contract signed. He's like, there's a reason why, you got to learn. So and when I started, and underwriting is a huge key in this. I get a lot of people that tell me, F you, I'm not taking that offer. And then a month later, they call me back because they took, an offer higher. And Russ, I'm sure you've been through this, but they call me back and they're like, you were right. Like, how much are you interested in? And I'm like, well, let me take a look. I'm still right here will work. I know I can get it done right here.
The other buyer wasn't legit and you are legit. And
I
how
think
much,
Hunter, the
what's your
biggest
price?
thing for you to kind of take off on the ramp and just go for it is, you were coming to me. He was coming to me a lot saying, hey, like, can you underwrite this deal? What about this? He was nervous because it wasn't his own money. And I had to kind of force him to think of like, these are the numbers, like trust yourself. And I had to give him the power. I said, you do not come to me to underwrite a deal. That's taking away. Like, I don't need to yank the rug out. I don't need that control. I need him to be able to underwrite a deal himself. And now he's amazing at it and he gets good deals and we don't have to terminate contracts. We don't got to get reductions because he underwrites it correctly. He sets the expectations and I've given, empowered him to like train himself over these many deals. And now he has that power. And so now he doesn't have to, and now it's faster and everything works smoother. I could have made it to where as a business owner that I was like, all the deals have to run through me. I got to approve all the offers. No, the second Hunter sends me a contract, I make sure it is formatted correctly and I sign it. I don't need to comp it because I know he did it right.
Right. Can anybody do this?
It goes through me usually.
What do you mean?
I think talking about anybody under.
I mean, can you train anybody to do this?
I think, well, so I guess I don't know how you want me to answer that. I'll answer how I think you want me to answer it. I think when I first
I don't have an agenda. It's an honest question.
when I first started as a business owner, I just hired anybody that would work for me. I was like, if anybody says that they raise their hand, they say, hey, I'll work for you. I hired anybody. It didn't matter. They just had a heartbeat. And I didn't have the track record to be able to hire an A player like Hunter. Hunter is like A player, like the definition, ambition.
Well, that's clear.
And so that's once I had built the track record and I brought in A players, I only bring in other A players at this point, and the newest guy we just hired, I said, go have a meeting with Hunter. If you don't fit with the team, if Hunter doesn't feel good about it, I did my interview with him, and now he met with Hunter, and Hunter's like, hey, this guy's it. I think this is who we need. And so you're able to train the people once we kind of figured out what that person looked like. Once I knew who had the sauce, yes, they can be trained. And if you want something bad enough, you'll go and do it.
Yeah, you got to be willing to. I think that's with this type of job is when I first started, Hayden was out of town, and I got in the office, and I had to make money. I'm like, my base, it ain't where I can be. I'll get by for 6 months or so, but I need to make money. And I got in here, and these dudes were doing absolutely nothing. I mean, I sat here, I literally sat at my desk, and I was like, what the hell is my job? What am I doing right now? And I'm messaging him. And he's like, I'll be back Wednesday. And then he gets back, we did nothing. And finally, when he gets back, daddy's home, we start turning on the dialer. I remember they made one dial and weren't training me or nothing. I just said, I'm going to do this. I jumped in because I'm like, I need to learn what I'm doing. And, there was no guidance, and that stuff didn't last long because of the laws and stuff. The team reduced pretty heavily, pretty quickly. I figured it out. And that's what I tell all my guys. I'm like, listen, you work for yourself, essentially. You've been given the tools, which is a lot of money for these good leads that are coming through and things like this. This is something that it's the experience and the education you're going to get from this process. But I can't call for you by yourself. We had a guy that was going to help us out from another area, and I spent 2 hours of my time on web calls telling him how to pull foreclosures, doing some stuff. And I'm like, you got to make the phone call. Daddy can't do the phone call for you. You got to do it, and you got to learn. You're going to learn by doing. I call him every day. I'm like, hey, did you make them calls? Oh, I still can't make my first call. I'm like, dude, I went to town. I'm like, this guy ain't got it, man. He can't. You have to be self-motivated to want to make money and to go in here and to talk. And that's the good thing about like freaking Sledge is that was my coolest thing is like, and Russ, this is one of the big reasons I wanted to get out of hotels. I saw my own capabilities, and I worked for a big company. My last company, it was out of Alabama, and I'm in the room with like 200 GMs and director of sales. And I'm that guy working the crowd, like talking to like the hotel staff, like the next morning at breakfast, I'm like, hey, blah, 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 by their name. Like, how you doing? And they're joking with me, like talking to everybody. And I would see my abilities to converse with people and communication. And I caught myself a lot of times, like I said, the point, I always think I want more. And there's a fine line of that, but I said, I think I'm destined to do more. What can I do more? I need to be in sales. I need to be doing something to where I can go use my gift of the jab to go talk to people. I'm a great connector, and doing that. That was the big reason kind of going in there. But you got to be able to go in here and be self-motivated. I can't do it for you. And that was what I was connecting at. The people that worked for me were amazing people in hotels, but there is a difference of people, who making $10 to $15 an hour for their entire life. You got some very rare people who just enjoy cleaning rooms or working breakfast, things like that.
Yeah.
But you don't have, like, overall, you're not talking about very motivated people who have big goals. I tried to actually teach that in the hotels of having goals. Don't compare yourself to other people. Whatever you want to do in life, go do it. But I wanted people that were like me. Loyalty was hard to find because you're not paying people to be loyal in businesses like that. A lot of turnover, roller coaster. Things might go good. You get a good, golden star who really helps out for a few months, but then they want more money. You can't do it because you're on a tight budget. Hotels don't, they don't cash flow as much as people think they do when, it's really like a rental property on steroids. And a lot of that goes back into the investment.
I hear that.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I was interested in sales because I was like, you look at a salesperson, like how you have to be to make money. Because like, you can come into work and not do anything, you ain't gonna make no money. So you already got a driven person who, so they're not gonna last very long.
Have you heard Tony Robbins explain a great salesperson?
No.
A great salesperson. Tony Robbins. I was a sales manager for a little bit. A great salesperson is the right mix of ego and empathy. If you have too much ego, everybody's going to say, this guy's a dick. I'm not working with him. If you have too much empathy, you're going to take no for an answer when you should not take no for an answer. If you can balance that ego and empathy, and I hear that from both of you, like crystal clear, that you care about people you have empathy for people, but you also care about yourself, your organization, your partner, your business, your fam. You know, there's that balance of ego and empathy is one of the best things I ever heard when I was learning to sell and teaching other people to sell,
Yeah, it's brilliant.
and keeping that as I like formulas. I mean, to me, it's not a formula I can write on a blackboard, but you understand that that's a balance of things. So those kinds of things are really exciting to me, and I've heard this through the whole podcast today. Is the opera and the wrestling and the broken hand and the kind of broken dreams with the things didn't quite go the way, and there's that ego and empathy working together, because if you have no empathy, nobody's going to work with you.
Yep.
So I love it.
Went to a bar, refused to shine. I didn't buy no beer and said, I tell you what, my name is Russ. I'm